Hello guys, and welcome back to another cryptocurrency video. My name is Joe, and today we're going to be talking about how Bitcoin works behind the scenes. So the first question I always get when I'm talking to people about cryptocurrency is, how does Bitcoin work? So I'm just going to be putting together a little bit of a series answering any and all questions I get in the comments, and the first one that we're going to be talking about is hashing. So I'm just going to draw a bit of a diagram here to help explain what hashing is. So what is hashing? Basically, it's a series of mathematical functions that allows you to input any number or letter and output something that is always going to be the same based on the input, but is also of the same length no matter what the input is. So for instance, I could put just a 1 over here and the output would always be the same length. It would be like 23 or 33 characters, whichever you want. And in terms of Bitcoin, this is representative of your Bitcoin addresses. So another thing about hashing is that you can't go backwards. So you can't go from the output, rehash it to the input. It's a one-way function. So this means you could have any output and you would never be able to calculate what the input is. So I could have a 1 here and it could give me an output, but if I give someone the output, they could never realistically figure out what that input actually was. Another important thing to know when you're talking about the behind the scenes of Bitcoin is something called public and private key cryptography. I'm going to link off to another video on a channel called Computerphile that talks specifically about this topic. But here I'll give you the basics, and I'm just going to draw another little diagram to help explain the process. So with this first diagram here, I'm just trying to show you that if someone wants to send you a message secretly over the internet, they can sign it with your public key. So what this means is that if you have a message and someone has your public key, they can encrypt them together to create some random data that they send over the internet. And then you, when you receive that message, can take the random data plus your private key and get whatever their message was back. So now I'll draw a diagram to show you how Bitcoin uses public key encryption to determine whether or not you're the actual sender of that transaction. Alright, so what I'm trying to show here is that when you send a Bitcoin transaction, what you're actually doing is you're bundling your transaction info and your private key together using hashing, and then sending that off to the network, the bundled private key and transaction info, with your public key. Then on the network, the nodes can use the public key info and your bundled transaction and private key info, which is then kind of garbage data, to pull out your transaction details. Now, just by the fact that they can pull out your transaction details and decrypt this message proves that you have the private key in your possession and that you're the actual owner of whatever the transaction details are. Now, this is an incredibly simplified version of a transaction on the Bitcoin network, but for these intro videos here, I'm just going to be doing the basic version. So now you're probably wondering, how do the nodes know that the Bitcoin that you're sending in your transaction details are actually yours? So now I'll just draw another diagram to explain exactly how the blockchain technology determines that that Bitcoin actually belongs to your address. Alright, so this is a basic representation of a blockchain. So this first person here is the person who successfully mined a block and was rewarded with, let's say it's 12.5 Bitcoins, but let's go back and say it's 25 Bitcoins. So this person has 25 Bitcoins. So now they decide that they're going to send it to this other person. So this person gets 25 Bitcoins, then this person sends it to another person. This person has now received the 25 Bitcoins, and this person sends it to another person, all along the chain here. Now what's happened here is this person has sent half the Bitcoin to this person and half of it to this person. This person has sent half of their Bitcoin to this person, and then someone has sent some Bitcoin to that address, and somebody is sending Bitcoin to you. So when you want to create a transaction on the Bitcoin network, essentially the nodes are checking all the way back to the history of when the Bitcoin was created, and then following it all the way along the chain to make sure that your address is the last address on the chain, and therefore is your Bitcoin. You have it in possession. So as long as your transaction info is correct and you're the last address to receive that Bitcoin, you can go ahead and send it to another person, creating another one of these nodes on the blockchain network. Now there's another function that your wallet actually does, and that is called change addresses. Bitcoin addresses are somewhat like a room with a floor that drops out of it. So you have your room here, and you receive Bitcoin. So you get a Bitcoin in here, you get some Bitcoin. When you want to send that Bitcoin, you can't just drop part of the Bitcoin out. All of it has to drop. So what happens if you want to send 0.5 Bitcoin and you received 1 Bitcoin to your wallet here? Well, what your wallet actually does in the background is creates another room that you own with a trapdoor in it, and then you have your receiver that you're trying to send the Bitcoin to. So it's going to drop part of the Bitcoin into your receiver's trapdoor room, and it's going to drop the rest that you don't want to send back into another address or another room that you own. So within your Bitcoin wallet, you're only going to see the subtraction of this amount, but what you're actually doing is sending all of the Bitcoin onto the network and just moving it to another address that you own. So that's it, guys, for now. Leave a comment down below if you have any more questions that you want me to answer. I can definitely go a lot more detailed than this. I just wanted to keep it basic for this first video. If you enjoyed the video and want to see more about trading altcoins, buying Bitcoin, more about Bitcoin wallets and software, then hit that subscribe button. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like, that'd be greatly appreciated. And leave a comment down below if you have any more questions that you'd like me to answer with this whiteboard here. Thanks so much for watching, and have yourself a great day.